I had to watch a lot of videos of climate deniers to understand their perspective and to argue like them, and I felt so stupid saying the things I was saying. So
Hello. I'm Prey, short for Prerna, also known as the girl inside Traveler's Shoes, and this is Yours Curiously, where I bring in some of my favorite people, get personal, and go deep on diverse interests, beliefs, and things you and I have probably wondered about at some point, and find out exactly what makes these people tick. And while we're doing that, entertain just a teeny bit of our curiosity at a time.
Disha Ravi is one of the founding members of Fridays for Future India. On today's episode, we talk about her motivation to join climate activism, the importance of climate education, how activism has transformed in the age of social distancing, and what is 1.5 and why it matters. Disha has a strong voice, and I'm going to go ahead and quote her. Millions of people are affected by climate crises every single day, but there is no action, and I've stopped waiting for any. We, the youth, will take action and we will unite and organize for a just and equitable future. End quote.
But first, I'd like to have a word with you about Don't Talk That Trash. Like what you hear, you love what I write. Don't Talk That Trash is my personal letter straight to your inbox. At the end of every month, I sit down on my desk, open my laptop, and write. There's just one catch. No editing. It contains raw thoughts on whatever occupies my mind at the moment, and quite a nice way to wrap up a month. Curious? You can get your own by visiting insidetravelershoes.com/subscribe. Don't Talk That Trash subscribers are also the first ones to know when I whip up something fun and receive cool bonuses from time to time. Oh hey, it's free and email only. So what are you waiting for? Check out insidetravelershoes.com/subscribe. Again, insidetravelershoes.com/subscribe and read the very next one. Now, back to the episode.
It's a beautiful evening, and I'm sitting in the evening sun in this beautiful property called Small World in Bangalore with Disha next to me, and we are going to talk about climate change, maybe hard topics for some, but it is necessary. And the first time I met you, I remember that you were asking people that climate change is real. You wanted them to convince you that. And it was kind of odd for me. And I found myself trying very hard to convince you that climate change is real. So tell me, why did you do that, and how did you come up with that?
So we were at Under 25 because we had done a project with them. We had a cleanup drive, and so they had given us a stall in Under 25, and we thought, let's use this opportunity to bring more people into Fridays for Future Karnataka. So I was like, okay, what's the best way to convince people? And there was one of my team members, his name is Deep, and he handles all our documentation, photography, videography, all the creative side
Nice
of it.
guy.
Yeah, very nice guy. And he was like, we should have one of those. He remembered some videos, and I don't actually know who that guy is, but apparently he does. And I've seen these in memes where they'll be like something super obvious, and then they'll be like, changed my mind. So we were like, okay, we will say climate change isn't real, and we'll ask people to change our mind. And so a lot of people would come up to me trying to tell me why climate change is real and all of that. So essentially what we wanted to do was use reverse psychology to convince people why, if they're so passionate about the climate crisis and why aren't they doing anything about it, or how they can do something about it. So once they told me why it's real and how they can tackle it, so it would always go with, why do you think climate change is not real? I'm like, because the weather's always changing. So that was one thing. And then they'll be like, okay, and then I'm like, okay, I'm a little convinced, but what can people do about it? And then they try to tell me this and this and this, and then I'd be like, yeah, but what about all those mass movements? You've heard that Fridays for Future, right? And they'd usually be like, yeah, and then I'd be like, why don't you join them? Then I tell them, yeah, this is us from FFF, and we're trying to get people to understand why they're not participating in fighting for climate justice if they know that climate change is real. So, and it worked really well because you got a lot of members, and that's how I met you, and here we are.
Yes.
So, yeah, it worked really well.
That's so creative, And I remember specifically what I told. I was remembering my time in the mountains and the plastic dumps and fact that, the snow-capped peaks, there is vegetation in places where there isn't supposed to be. And you were like, that's nice. That's good, right?
Yeah, that's good. No ice is good. People can live. Oh my God. I had to watch a lot of videos of climate deniers to understand their perspective and to argue like them, and I felt so stupid saying the things I was saying, so that was definitely interesting.
So tell me, how did you get involved with Fridays for Future?
So last year in 2019, in around Jan-Feb, I was watching all the climate strikes happening around the world, and I was like, I knew the climate crisis was a real issue and I wanted to do something about it, and I was like, okay, this is an outlet, and I saw that there was no one doing it in India.
When was this?
This was around Feb ending, around the beginning of March 1st, 2nd, 3rd.
A year?
Yeah, like a year ago in 2019.
2019.
Yeah. So I put out like an Instagram story like, hey, the climate strikes are happening. It's supposed to be on the 15th of this month. The climate crisis is real. We need to do something about it. If anyone wants to join in, hit me up. And then one of my very close friends, Shreya, she texted me and she's just like, there's this other girl I saw sharing posts saying that she wanted to do as well. And her name was Amrita. And so I text Amrita and I'm like, hey Amrita, what about this? And she's like, oh wait, I got it from this other person called Karen. And so I texted Karen and I was like, okay, I wanted to do something about it. Yes, I've seen that you also want to do something about it, so let's do it together. And she's like, absolutely. And so she's like, I'm trying to get FF started in India. And I'm like, okay, perfect, because I want to do the same thing. And she's like, okay, that's amazing, because where do you live? And I was like, I'm in Bangalore. She was in Bangalore too, which was perfect. And then she's like, someone from Mumbai and Delhi had also reached out to her, asking, if they can help with this.
And maybe start a chapter in India.
Yeah, start a chapter in India. So it's all very blurry because we were also hyped up that we're going to do this, and we didn't realize it would grow to be as big as it is now.
Yeah, now it is so big. I see chapters everywhere. In Alapi, I didn't expect the chapter to be there. I was looking for something in Cochin.
Yeah.
But then I was like, Alapi, Kerala has a chapter?
It does. I know the person there. We have 60 plus chapters now and one entirely indigenous run chapter. It's in Jharkhand. It's amazing. I can't believe it. I mean, I can't. So many people have built this from scratch, and they worked so hard, and it's such an honor and privilege to work with them. And I've learned so much from everyone in the movement, and we're non-hierarchical, so everyone has same say in it, and it's such a learning experience every single day. I'm just so grateful for the entire community in general.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know, can you explain exactly what Fridays for Future is?
Yeah, so Fridays for Future was a movement started by Greta Thunberg in Sweden back in September 2018. So she started striking outside the Swedish parliament because she understood that the climate crisis is a real issue, and she's like, why isn't it on all the mainstream media? Why aren't we talking about this? So she started striking, started skipping school every day initially, and then she went on only to Fridays. She mentioned that's because Fridays is the only day she has the least amount of school, so she doesn't have as many classes. That's why it's called Fridays for Future.
Oh, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, and it soon started spreading. She convinced her classmates and other people. In Sweden, they started striking. It picked up a lot in Europe, and it spread like wildfire. She started posting online, that's how it spread. But yeah, it spread all across Europe, and I was watching this, and that's when they called for a global strike. And I was like, we are one of the most affected regions. So India is supposed to be one of the most affected countries by the climate crisis, and why aren't we talking about it? Why aren't we leading the change? So that's why we started it, because we wanted to be a part of the conversation. Because now I believe we should be leading the conversation because most impacted people. So yeah, that's why we started FFF and all. We were so small. We didn't even think 100 people showed up to our first check. We didn't even think 10 people would show up. We thought it would be just us holding posters. It was amazing.
That's how it is, You don't expect much of it, but then
Yeah.
you get this overwhelming response, and it kind of makes you want to, take this forward, right?
Yeah.
And then how did you come across it? Fridays for Future.
It was on the internet. It was just because like everyone was sharing about it on Twitter, on like social media, and I was like, finally a group of people, especially young people, are doing something about it. And as a young person, I felt motivated to do that in my country as well.
That's so nice. So, when did you start activism?
So I was an animal rights activist back in like 2018. That's when I went vegan, and I was really passionate. I still am today about animal rights because I do feel like animals are just as important as any other human being, any other species on the planet. I'm just not as vocal about it now because I'm so involved in climate activism and activism. I don't think a lot of people speak about how draining it can be. And it is very draining. It has a huge impact on my mental health, and I don't have the mental capacity to do both anymore. So I had to pick one, and I picked the climate change because I needed more people to be talking about that.
Yeah, I think, people are already having a conversation about animal rights, but not a lot of people want to talk about climate change.
I'm not sure. I think it differs from region to region because in India, at least, I'm not sure because I've been involved in both spaces, so I'm in both the bubbles. So the outer response, like what happens outside our like bubble, like because most of my friends are climate activists, most of my friends already know about this because I don't stop talking about it. So I'm not sure what the outside world thinks. So fully, I think I've tried to ascertain it, but I think there's like more conversation about the climate crisis, but not the urgency of it. Like more people know that this is happening, but they don't know how it's happening now. If they think it's a problem of the future, well, it's the problem of the present. So yeah.
I think that's how it is, You can see the changes right now, but we don't actually acknowledge it sometimes.
Yeah.
So, how did you start thinking about climate change and everything? Was it in your childhood?
It was, and this isn't something I talk about much, but my grandparents are farmers, so I grew up a lot on, with them, and they used to have a lot of water issues. Like, they would either have like no water, they'd go for the longest period without any water, and their crops would suffer, and like we wouldn't have.
So, how long are we talking about?
Like, they would go for like a week or two without water, and that's
any kind of water, not even drinking?
no, they can drink water, but not enough water to like grow crops. Like, luckily they had drinking water, they had water to for recreational purposes, but not enough to grow crops. It was the bare minimum, and the crops would dry out because of that, or they weren't able to grow crops that were more water intensive but that could give them a better price in the market. This happened, and it would be either that or the most extreme situation where it would rain heavily and all the crops would die out because of the rain, and they'd either have no crops at the end of it. One of the most noticeable things that I remember was like I would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and find my granny walking all around the house, and it took like when I asked my grandparents, they're like, oh, she has to go switch on the water in the middle of the night. So we lived in the middle of the farm, and she had to walk all the way down to the farm in the middle. Like, as a child, I thought there was a ghost house because it was the small room where the water pump was, and she had to go in the middle of the night, walk all the way from the house to that pump in the middle of the farm where you can't see, there's no light, there's barely any electricity. Even today, even when they have began to give electricity to villages, they only get electricity for like 5 hours in the morning, or 4 hours in the morning, and like 4 hours in the evening, and that's it. They don't have any time else. And even back then, that was the case. And they would switch on the water specifically at like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. and it would run for an hour or two. So the minute, the electricity came in the early hours of morning, and the water pump was turned on, she had to go and switch it on because that's when they got water. I could also see how gender played a role in it, but I didn't realize any of this, and I didn't realize this was because of the climate crisis until I grew up, and in school they taught us absolutely nothing about the climate crisis except the ozone layer and how it has holes in it. And I was like, poor ozone layer, man.
I also remember the ozone layer. I was so concerned about it. Oh, why do we keep using CFCs?
Yeah. And but I'm glad the ozone is getting better now, but and I didn't realize any of this is the climate crisis, and also nothing was taught in school, and my pre-university I didn't study this anywhere because I did a very business-oriented course. I did commerce, and they don't teach this there. And finally, when I came to college, and it was things had gotten better for my grandparents, and they would always talk about now they're luckily the government did one thing right, and they set up more water pipelines from the river and all of that. But that was one of my grandparents, and my other one still suffered from the water crisis. Luckily, they aren't farmers, even though they belong to the same family. He's retired now, but every time I go over to his house, even today, he's like, you can only use one bucket of water for shower. Every time the municipality or the surrounding area, they switch on the water, he will run and switch on the water so that it goes up to the tank and all of that, even every single day. And the minute it fills up, he'll stop it. He's so particular about water wastage. And you can't waste water. Why are you washing your face for 2 minutes? So all of this, and he is so concerned. He grows, everyone in my family, I think, grows their own plants or food. Even my mom, we have a community garden. One of our neighbors has just given their land to the entire community. So everyone in the layout comes together and they grow food there. So even my grandpa does that. Everyone just grows food. It's so beautiful because no one's paying rent for it. No one's paying. It's someone's land that they've just given out just so that people can benefit off it.
And it's better for the environment.
Yeah, it is so much better for the environment because we're growing our own food.
No packaging.
Yeah, and just the fact that the community comes together to work together, and it's like screw capitalism. It's just a lovely feeling. And so he grows his own plants, and my other grandparents, they live close by, so they give them what they grow also. But this one also suffers from the water crisis more than, and the fact that you don't have access to safe drinking water. The more I read about it, this September, the Financial Express put out a report that said more than 50% of the population in India doesn't have access to safe water. And that's a lot. That's billions of people.
Most of rural India.
Yeah, and most of it is from rural India. These are the people who have contributed the least to the climate crisis, but they're the worst affected. So I found out all about this only when I was in the last year of my college, and that's why I was I can't not do anything about this. There's absolutely no conversation about how this is a present event, and it's a current issue. Instead, it's just a future. It's the future for the white man. That's why it's seen as a future issue. It's also a racial issue because if the white people were affected now, there'd probably be more conversation about it because it's the people of color or black people in
people from underdeveloped nations.
Yeah, underdeveloped according to them nations. Yeah. It's not on the current news. But if it was, say, a white man who's sitting in his AC room suffering from the climate crisis, I bet you it would be on all the front pages. The climate crisis, one of my friend Aisha, she always says that climate justice is not just an issue of the rich and the white, and I think it's very powerful to me.
It is an issue for everyone.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong with our planet, I think everyone is gonna suffer for it.
Yeah.
And your story about, your beginnings and your village and water scarcity reminded of my own village, where something similar happened. So I think late last year, I decided that, I just wanted to quit living in the city for a while, and I moved to my village to stay with my grandparents. They also had a huge water crisis over there. There was, I think, for an hour or two, and sometimes, maybe after 2 days or 3 days, there would be water supply. and all that water would have worms in them.
Yeah.
And they would use that. And I remember that, there's one specific time, and all of us rushed over there, and I used to help them get these buckets of water
Yeah.
from that place, and I would carry them to the house and fill all the utensils we have with water.
Yeah.
And-
My mom used to do that when we lived in Malaysia.
And I was kind of irked by those insects, but then I started living with them, and I'm like, it's okay, people live like this, and
Yeah.
they're not doing any harm, it's okay. Even when we had to the switch on the motor, it would be for an half an hour or
Yeah.
something, and I was just in the middle of it all. You understand how important it is and how privileged we are living in here.
Yeah, exactly. No, even on before, we lived in Malaysia for a year when I was very small and I was 4 or 5 years old. I remember my mom used to carry, wake up at 6 a.m. to carry water to wash the clothes. She'd do all of it by hand, and that also shows in gender inequality, because I remember my grandma doing all the water chores and my mom is doing all of this social pressure. So there's also a gender thing, and yeah, we'd fill up every single, even my grandpa now, he fills up every single bucket of water, is filled to the brim with water when there's water supply. Yeah, I get what you mean. And the water we used to get before was filled with just weird, these rocky, salty things. It would be hard water, not not the nicest water. It would be filled with dirt and stones, weird stones, very harsh stones.
Even the water in Bangalore, the Kaveri
yeah.
water is pretty bad.
It is.
I came back from Alapi and I had a lot of hair loss.
No, I get what you mean. It's just hard water that's not good for you.
What are some of the issues that are, relevant now? What is happening right now? What is important right now? What should we focus on?
The water crisis, obviously an ongoing issue, and there's so little spoken about it. So little, even to cite quotations, there's so little research done on it, and leave the research aside. There's so much. The lack of action around it is really sad, and the air pollution is an ongoing issue. Is the air. In NG Road, there's a really nice NGO called Jatka. They've installed these lungs that breathe, and the first 10 days it was white lungs, and now if you go in, it's grey. It's getting ashy.
So
because
how
of
does
the
that
AQI.
work?
So it's just like a respiratory system. It takes in the air. And you can see it's getting dirty because of how bad the AQI is, and they even have an AQI A quality index machine which says that it's, when I last was there, it was around 64, 68, it was fluctuating. The AQI is supposed to be around 40, 50. And
How long ago was this?
this was very recent. This was in November 28th.
What were the lungs made of?
I'm not sure. I'll have to check with them, but it's a pretty good system, and you can see the A quality index. It's supposed to be what Masha said, according to the UN, the good safe air quality is supposed to be around 40, 50. This is 60. That's just Bangalore, and it's in Delhi. It's way worse. It's around 100. We are breathing in toxic air, and it's going to affect us. Around 2 lakh people died last year, not last year, by about 2018, from just air pollution related issues. That's a lot of people to be dying from this, and there's not a lot of conversation about it. And the farmers' issues, it is very important because climate justice is intersectional, and farmers are on the front line of the climate crisis. And when the government passes reforms to existing farming laws and makes it pro-corporate, who's benefiting off it? Because 60% of the country depends on farming as a livelihood.
We depend on the farmers for our food.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole of the country depends on them.
Yeah, and now they're passing reforms that are going to benefit big corporations like Ambani and Adani's, and it's going to benefit them, and it's not going to benefit the farmers. So what's the priority here? And 250 million people are striking against it in India, and it's still not the front news in all the world newspapers. 250 million people is close to the population of the entire US. And what are we doing about it?
pretty much nothing.
Yeah, and like it's brutal. So these are some of the issues that are happening right now.
Is Indian media covering it?
Okay, so what I heard from speaking to some of the people, farmers on ground, was uh, media agencies have been advised not to talk about it except for a few keywords. They can't mention a lot of things, and they have to follow like a strict set of guidelines for talking about the farmers issue, which is just what is freedom of speech then?
Exactly.
Internationally, there is some coverage about it, but not as much as it should be. Like, these protests have been going on for like since October, November, and December. It's ongoing, and like it only became even relevant when they started marching towards Delhi because they're blocking the highways because that was the intention, and now they've let them inside Delhi in a peaceful way after firing water cannons on them and like guns on them and all of the violence. They've let them peacefully sit there, but like the fact that 250 million people are striking and it's not the front page of news of every news outlet in the world, it's just really concerning. Yeah, I don't even know how to put that into words because that's millions of people. Yeah.
I wanted to know, what was your experience talking to these farmers firsthand? What did they have to say about it, and what are their grievances, maybe?
They think they had a conversation with the government quite recently, I think on the 9th of December, and
Where are these farmers from?
all of these are the ones in Delhi. We have our Delhi chapter, FF Delhi. They are on the ground supporting the farmers and covering it, documenting it. I think you might have heard of Akshay Kapoor. He's part of FF Delhi. He's one of the main photographers involved, and he has a team of other people. He's been documenting the protests, and there's Lakshay, who's also been providing support on ground. These people are doing amazing work, and they connected me to a farmer so that we can amplify their voices internationally. And they were talking about how when they spoke to the government, the government invited the farming leaders for a conversation. They didn't take heed to any of the farming demands, and it was an absolute joke that their demands weren't even heard. Like whatever the government is offering is ridiculous. It's nothing better. So they said they will continue striking.
What exactly happened? What happened? Like, why weren't their demands heard? Like, what did they do when they met them then?
Honestly, it was just, I think, for the sake of media to like calm everyone down, because when we met them, I just know like a short story. I don't know the whole thing, but what happened was that they were, luckily it was quite civil and everything, but they heard them whatever they had to say, and everything was like, oh, but see, we're trying to remove the middlemen and make it online. But how many of our farmers are educated enough and have internet access to put their prices on this thing? And they're like, we're not going to remove MSP and all of that. But the farmers aren't convinced, given how previously it has gone when they've done similar things like this. And when they asked them to withdraw the laws, they straight up said no. So it's not going to happen. It was a lot of sugarcoating everything.
It's kind of disheartening, listening to all this and what happens in our country, and that we don't even get to speak about it. I mean, we don't speak about it. It's not that we don't get to, we just choose not to.
Yeah.
A lot of us. So tell me, what work have you done as part of Fridays for Future before and after COVID? How has it changed, after all of us started sitting in our houses, and what was it like before?
So January of this year, we were out on the streets, we were striking physically because Bangalore had the KRDCL was cutting trees around Sarjapur. And
There was some ring road project.
Yeah, the ring road project.
I think I was also there for it.
Yeah, I think you were there. So we were striking for that in Sarjapur and all of that. And February came, and January we even had a national coordinators meet. So everyone, we all met at Mumbai. There were like 10 cities, which is a lot because like people couldn't come in person. But yeah, it was really nice, and we all met, and it feels like another year at this point. And we got so many things done. We're like, okay, plan the entire year out. No one like saw COVID around the corner, nothing. And Fab was when, like, I think more issues came out, and we were all like, oh, okay, it's still in another country, it's not going to come to us, even though it's unable.
Yeah. That's what I felt too, you know.
Yeah.
I went to Alleppey thinking that I went in March.
Yeah.
I had no clue. People were like, oh, there are 2 cases there. I'm like, it's okay, I'm going there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's 2 cases, you can contain 2 cases. Yeah, I thought it'd be way more contained and like, it's not, yeah, but then everything started closing down and we started working from home. And like, we were like, okay, we have to digital strike now, we don't know how effective that'll be. And eventually we got used to it and we were like planning digital actions. We had Twitter storms and...
How do digital strikes work?
Okay, so digital strikes personally, I don't think have a huge impact. So basically, you take a picture of yourself and, with a poster or a placard saying, I'm digital striking for so and so, and you post it with the relevant hashtag. It definitely helps getting the hashtags trending. So awareness wise, it's good, but actual measurable impact wise, I don't think so. But see, since we had to move online, so did the government offices. So any form of objections, everything had to be sent over email and or tweeted to the relevant offices. So what we did was we organized email storms, and one of the main things was the environmental impact assessment. There was a new draft that came out, and they left a notification. They were like, send emails to this particular email with all your objections.
EIA, right?
Yeah, the EIA and suggestion. And we built an email storm around it. We had like an objection because it wasn't good. It was again pro corporates, and it took away the rights of people to object because they added more and more projects where the whoever corporation or whatever they're doing, they don't have to do an environmental impact assessment or for it. The people couldn't come and object against it, and they were trying to pass that EIA. That's like the brief. There are so many issues under the EIA, but this is in the most common way, the most problematic thing. Like, you can take away indigenous land and you don't even have to inform them about it. And like, that's what happened to democracy, what happened to our right to dissent and object when it directly affects us, right? So we had an email storm where people could come to our website, read the email if they're okay with it. If they hit send, it would directly take them to the Gmail, but they can still edit it out. And they just have to hit send. It's a 2-minute work. And we were able to move. The objection date was pushed first till June or July. I'm not sure, I get confused between those 2 months. And we managed to send, as Just FF India, 1 lakh emails.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and we had never mobilized that many people on
I think
the
I also sent an email. So
Yeah. Yay.
part of it.
See, we were able to reach so many people to send emails, and that was just the first month. And that's just FFF, because there were a lot of environmental movements doing it. It was also pushed, and there was like a legal action by a few of the people who were involved. We had a coalition of with all the environmental movements to fight the EIA because it was just so bad. And a few of the lawyers in the Supreme Court had especially filed saying, this isn't democratic because this was passed during when we were all in lockdown where we can't object, where there wasn't, and they had to translate the EIA to different languages, and it was just in English so that other people can understand. So that wasn't done, so it was violating quite a few legalities. So it was pushed to another date, and by the end of that day, we've managed to get 1 million people to send emails, not just as FFF and as the entire coalition, because our website got taken down after the first email storm.
Yeah, what was that about,
Yeah, so our website got taken on. After the date, we found out the next day that was the last day, and everyone got pumped. We made a video, a popular YouTuber posted it, and it went viral, and like 40,000 signatures in one night. Then we wake up the next morning to find our website non-existent. It's not opening to us anymore. And then we didn't know why it happened. We emailed our web service providers, and they were like, we don't know what it is, but we have been asked by the government to take it down. And this was directly by the government, and we were like, why? And we filed an RTI, and then we checked and we got an email saying it's because we were sending too many emails, and it was a UAPA. We got a UAPA slammed into us, which
What's
is
a UAP?
that's an Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. It's basically the government calling us terrorists. And we got the entire legal notification by the government. They said, you've been notified under UAPA for sending way too many emails to Prakash Javadekar, who's our environmental minister, his email ID. But the issue is that you requested objections to be sent to this email. So some people CC the environmental minister, but it's a public email. We are allowed to write to him. We're supposed to write to him. So you can't blame us for emailing. We're well within our right to do all of this. So we reached out to Internet Freedom Foundation. They had also heard about it, and we had a few mutual connections. We reached out to them for help, and shout out to Internet Freedom Foundation for all the great work they're doing. And they took up the case all pro bono, and they did such an amazing job. And we filed RTIs, and we sent a representation in saying that this is what we did, this is the email content, and this is how many people sent it. Everything was, everything we did was well within our rights to do. And there was so much media picked it up, like the fact that little children are sending emails is threatening enough to call us terrorists is just bizarre. No one's ever heard of that before. So the media picked it up, and the police were under pressure, so they had to take it out. The UAPA was like the police and the ministry had to withdraw the UAPA against us, so we were in the clear. But yeah, the fact that they'd go to this length to just silence the voices of children who are sending emails is absolutely interesting. And then after a while, we got our website back, but we also had another website just as a backup. Once the website got taken on, we got another one just to make sure. We weren't sure because even our lawyers told us that you may or may not get the website back, you never know. And in a time when digital spaces like this, like our website is key to push out all our email storms and our Twitter storms, the fact that like our voices were silenced to such an extent, so we had to get another one. And so we had to get another one, but we eventually did get this back after like 14, 15 days.
How did that happen?
It just popped back up.
Oh, good.
We didn't since it was de-notified, I guess they had to send it to the web providers, and it popped back up, luckily. We also emailed them back saying, listen, this is everything we did, nothing's fair, but they didn't email us back. They didn't do anything, there's no other communication, it just popped back up. And then we still continue to run it in our other website, and all out of environmental movements like Let India Breathe, Extinction Rebellion, they were also doing email storms because all of us have different audiences, and we wanted to reach as many as possible. It's not about which environmental organization is going to pick this up. It's always about working together, because that's the only way we're going to get change. Because the more people that are united, there's this quote that says, "People united can never be defeated," and I really like it because that's why what I do with FF is also about bringing people together. It's all about connections. So we connect to different environmental groups on the ground, we connect to Dalit rights, and we connect internationally to other groups with amplifying voices. So essentially amplify the most underrepresented people in the environmental spaces internationally so that they can talk, because it's their voices that needs to be heard. So by the end of the EAI objection, we managed to send 1 million emails, not just like FF, all environmental groups. There was like a newspaper article, I think by Times of India, that said 1 million emails sent, because we had all filed in RTIs asking the government to understand how many emails they received as an objection, and the RTI came back with 1 million emails.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't think we would have ever mobilized 1 million people to strike on the ground, because also striking can be ableist, because not everyone can come out of their houses, not everyone can walk long distances. So we made sure this was accessible to everyone who, with just internet, you could send it. So it was amazing.
So simple yet powerful.
Yeah, it was. And we found that Twitter storms and everything were really, really powerful.
What are Twitter storms like?
So basically, if there's an issue, so recently we had a Twitter storm. There's a Twitter storm, I believe, today at like 5 for Save Tano, which is this area, and they're cutting out a lot of trees, and they're having a Twitter storm. So basically, there's a Twitter deck prepared with suggested tweets about what the issue is, who you're supposed to be tagging, like authoritative figures who can actually, withdraw the things. So the people in power and other influencers who have authority over the people in power. So if you were targeting the ministry, the influencer power would be the Minister of Environment or Minister of along the same resources. So a list of all of their accounts and how you could tag and certain suggested tweets. There's also like a click to tweet. So you can go under a tweet and you can just click on it. It'll take you to your Twitter account and it'll already be filled in. You just have to hit one button.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so we mobilize people to do it. So how it gets trending on Twitter is per second of tweets. So for 2 hours, some 30, 40 people, sometimes even 60, 100 people are just tweeting. They do nothing except tweet. So they usually have tweets drafted out, or they use the Twitter bank we do, which has over 100, 120, 150 tweets. Just copy paste it, and then they come back. We use a common hashtag to make it easy to find them. Once you're done with 10 tweets, you come back, search the hashtag, see others with the same tweets, retweet it. So this way, there's momentum picking up. We've managed to do 20,000 tweets in 2 hours sometimes. And it gets trending, so there's more awareness about it. Twitter is a great place because you can directly talk to authorities. There's a high chance when there are 20,000 tweets aimed at you, you're probably going to look at your notifications.
And probably respond.
Yeah. So that's one of our most effective ways because everyone can take part of that. So it's been super accessible, and we've had other digital actions. It depends on which campaign, but these are email storms or Twitter storms are absolutely the most effective ones. You can also call your MP and talk to them. You can give suggestions because we are in a supposedly democratic country, so you can initiate that conversation. Most people don't know about this. We're making the information more available and accessible. Digital striking is way, way more effective. I wouldn't say way more effective, but it's way more accessible. It's definitely super, super effective. And the best part of it is it's measurable impact. You can measure exactly how many people came, exactly how many people had the conversation, exactly how many people sent it, which is harder to do in physical strikes. So I personally prefer digital, even though I do love physical striking.
And the energy that comes from it.
I swear. I think a mixture of both is super, super important. And before we didn't do as much digital stuff, but now it's definitely a key to one of our functionings. Yeah.
Yeah, because physical and digital both have their own pros and cons, and I think you have to make the most of both of them.
Yeah, definitely.
And hopefully, when we get out of this, the physical strikes will be back.
I know we've already had a physical strike. It was socially distanced, masked, and everything.
Oh, perfect.
It was in November the 28th. We had an Asia climate rally. Our theme in India was to unite against the farmers' strikes and support them. So it was on a Saturday. We all came together and we had a very socially distanced strike about why the farming issues is important and everything. And we had another digital strike just very recently in December, around the 11th. Yeah, about why we need to fight for 1.5, because December 12th is the anniversary of the Paris Agreement, but these are really technical things which require way backstory.
But why don't you, explain at least a bit so we can understand what 1.5 is?
So I didn't know about this, and a lot of people obviously don't know about it because there's no climate education to at least the working class and the common citizens, only to very rich kids in India. So 1.5 is basically the world degrees of greenhouse gas emissions we need to be at to prevent any type of climate catastrophe. We are currently at 1.2 degrees. It sounds like very small numbers, like 1.2, 1.5. It's like a 0.3 degree change in temperature, the global temperature rise. How is that going to make a huge difference but it is. It's not just, like weather temperature where you think like it's 21 degrees Celsius now, and if it goes to 24 degrees Celsius, there's not a huge difference. This is the global emissions temperature. So there's a huge difference in even a 0.1 percentage. So we are currently at 1.2 global greenhouse gas emissions temperature, and we have to prevent it from going to 1.5, and we have 10 years to do it.
Oh.
No, actually, it's supposed to be like 5 or 6 years now because we haven't done anything. So otherwise, we will inevitably hit 1.5 in like the next 5, 6, 7 years.
Because there will be a lot of difficulty in undoing the damage we've already done.
Yeah, definitely. And so 5 years ago, on December 12th, world leaders came together in Paris and signed what is very famously known in the climate movement and the climate space as the Paris Agreement. And
Heard about it.
Yeah, and in the Paris Agreement, they said that they will keep global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees. But it's been 5 years since they made that promise, and they have done absolutely nothing about it. If anything, they've made things worse, especially in India. Even though we're meeting our NDCs, it's very low. We've opened up 41 coal mines. We've auctioned it out for corporate use. And we're passing reforms like the EIA, which is detrimental to the people and, benefiting corporations once again. We have given approvals for 200 plus deforestation projects in India alone this year, in 2020, sorry. That is, a lot of these are in eco-sensitive zones. A lot of these are home to indigenous people who are the protectors of the environment more than anyone else. And if you're going down this way, how are you going to protect it? Because we are already facing the climate crisis. We've had 4 floods. We've had 50% age of the population have no access to water. So,
and also a lot of storms coming in.
Yeah, a lot of storms coming in. And it's really, really scary to be living, and this is just 1.2. Imagine at 1.5, like millions, if we're at 50 now, probably. I don't want to state, it's not facts because I'm not a scientist, but but 1.5 is predicted to be much, much worse. There's going to be increased flooding. Instead of the flooding being a flooding season, there's a flooding season in India. It's going to be everyday occurrences, and these are facts. And people are not going to have access to water. Like, according to the Niti Aayog report, Bangalore, our city, isn't supposed to have water in the next 2 years. And underground levels of water, it's not going to be there in the next 2 years. How much worse it is. And this is just at 1.2. Imagine, like, 5 to 6 years, 7 years down the line when we're supposed to reach 1.5 and things continue like this. It's going to be a huge difference. Like, people aren't going to have access to water. People are going to get flooded. People aren't going to have any clean air, because out of the most polluted countries in the world, India, there were 30 countries, and India had 21 cities amongst them.
Wow.
Out of 30.
Nothing to be proud about.
Yeah, nothing to be proud of. We had 21 out of 30. All of these most polluted cities in the world. We're breathing very, very toxic air, and we're just at 1.2. And a 0.3% rise is, not 0.3, it's more than, oh my god, my math is so bad.
Take your time, take a breather and tell.
Yeah. No, we are currently at 1.2, and if we increase by 0.3 and go to 1.5, it's going to be much, much worse. It's living hell for us. It's going to be okay for people in the northern hemisphere and the global north, but not for us. So 1.5 is not even the bare minimum that we're supposed to be doing. And global leaders think that 1.5 is ambitious, which is a joke to me, because how is 1.5 ambitious? Because there are people's lives on the line.
Exactly. And we can face the consequences right now.
Yeah, and so which is why internationally Fridays for Future launched a campaign called Fight for 1.5, where we spoke about why it's necessary to fight for 1.5, because 1.5 is not even the bare minimum. We're supposed to be doing better, but we need to be under 1.5. and we need like a just transition and equitable transitions. And one of our top demands were reparations, where historically colonized people are going to need to be, paid for climate funds and loans by historically colonizing countries like the UK and like Britain,
Spain.
yeah, and Spain and French, and like carbon majors like the US and China, who are responsible for majority of the population. More US, because more than population is really not the issues, because that's just the racist myth that we've been put under, because these aren't even our emissions, these are transported emissions. So carbon majors need to be more accountable for the pollution they create and the colonization of all of this they're doing. Like the US ships tons and millions of tons of plastic to Africa. So just because it's again shipping your emissions to another country and polluting another country. Yeah, it's not like Africa's not a dumpster, especially Kenya. This happens a lot in Kenya. And it's like it's not a dumpster for you to ship your trash back to us. Yeah.
I am, overwhelmed by everything you have talked about today.
Yeah, I know it's really daunting news, but there are a lot of positive news as well. So
It depends on, the positive news is, it depends on the future we choose.
yeah, like the ozone is fixing itself, so that's good.
Ozone is fixing itself, but, maybe, we help, make those positive news.
Yeah, we do. And I feel very inspired to be in a movement because the people I work with are inspiring. Their hard work inspires me to do better. Even when I get anxious just talking to them, understanding why they fight, that makes me feel so much better and makes me want to keep doing this, because it reminds me why I'm doing this. And it's the people. We do it for the people. And it sounds super cheesy, but like I strongly believe that like love and friendship and us being united together is going to change the world.
I mean, it is. The more I travel, the more I meet people, it's like we are the same. We want the same things, and we essentially are looking for the same things, and we have the same dreams, and we want to connect with people the same way. It's just, some boundaries keeping us apart and from actually, mingling with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And showing that love. That was such an insightful conversation with you, Disha, and it brought into perspective so many things that are going on right now in the world, and a lot of us have to pay attention to these things. And thank you for talking to me today. I'm really glad to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was, I think it's like a reminder, because people can do so much together, and it's so important to have these conversations.
All of us can, fight this. Just believe in climate change, guys. And
Believe in the power that you can make a change.
yes, believe in the power that you can make a change as well.
I hope you liked the conversation as much as I loved being part of it. And if you did, go ahead and subscribe to Yours Curiously on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, or wherever you prefer to catch up on your podcast to keep in the loop and show some love. Links to everything we discussed and notes with timestamps can be found in the show notes at insidetravelershoes.com/yours-curiously. You can stalk Disha and her amazing work on Twitter and Instagram at Disha Ravi with a double I, which is at the rate of DISHARAVII. Inspired to do your bit for the environment? Head to fridaysforfutureindia.com. Want to know about this girl speaking to you right now? InsideTravelersShoes.com is your place. Or at the rate of Inside Travelers Shoes on Instagram. Like this podcast? Keep up with the updates at Yours Curiously Pod on Instagram. Or if you prefer Twitter, updates on Yours Curiously and my other projects are posted at In Travel Shoes. Until next time, curious cats.